Well, welcome to the next edition of the Buyer's Guide. In tonight's video we are going to be looking at a spotted fin groundbait. Spotted fin are one of the newer brands that are out there on the market now, but the mix we're going to be looking at tonight is the Sweet Super Blend. Well, I obviously get quite a bit of feedback from lots of viewers and lots of anglers on the bank that are constantly talking to me about different ground baits and different mixers. I decided to no longer be attached to one single bait company back in February last year. So since then I've been approached by so many different anglers and companies just kind of telling me about their mixers. Now, one of the brands that I was always very keen to get, take a closer look at was the Spotted Fin range of ground baits. Now, the mix tonight we've got, it's the Sweet Super Blend. It's a mix that I know, some high profile anglers I've used over the last 12 months or so, and because I've obviously seen them and I've competed against them and been sat next to them on the bank, and so I was really looking forward to looking at this range of ground baits. Now, the one that we're looking at tonight, like I say, as the name suggests, it is a sweeter type of ground bait, but as always these companies want you to buy their products and they want you to have a better idea about what they're suited for, because if you've got a better understanding of that, then you're hopefully going to catch more fish with them, and then that obviously means that you're more inclined to go back and buy that ground bait again. So a lot of the packaging on the ground baits that we see today really tell you what the mixers are all about, and some of them have got lots of information on them, and Spotted Fin is one of those brands that do that. So before we start making any guesses about what kind of mix this is, let's see what it says on the packaging, just so it'll give us a better idea about what it's designed for. As with all Spotted Fin mixers and ground baits, the actual branding and everything of the actual their ground baits is very clear to see. They stand out really well on the shelves, and that's obviously what we're faced with tonight in this video. Now, the packaging it's quality packaging, as you can see, and the great thing about this particular type of ground bait is that it comes with bags that are resealable. So if you don't use all your mix in one go, then that obviously means you can reseal it, and that just means it keeps it nice and fresh for the next session. So that's a nice little touch. Okay, so what we got on the bag itself, we've obviously got the name of the ground bait, Sweet Super Blend. We've also got on there how to mix. There's a quick how to mix guide on there. Slowly add water to bind ground bait, leave to soak, riddle, then add more water as required. Very standard instructions for mixing ground bait, but if you stick to that with all ground baits, then you shouldn't go far wrong at all. Just don't rush mixing them, simple as that. Ground baits aren't cheap, and you don't want to waste them by just adding too much water at the start and ruining them. So just add water little and often, and just take your time. Try and allow plenty of time for mixing before you actually plan on fishing with it. Okay, what else we've got on here? We've got another quick description here of the ground bait. Sweet Super Blend is a highly attractive sweet fish meal mix. So as the name suggests, it is sweet and it has got fish meal in it. It is the perfect all-round ground bait for bream, skimmers, carp and F1s. Okay, so it's giving you an idea of what the mix is all about. This has obviously got the packaging, it's got a window in the packaging, so that's given us a nice opportunity to have a look at what the mix is about. As you can see on first inspection, there isn't much feed in there at all. As you can see, I'm not sure what those black bits are in there. There might be tiny little bits of hemp, I'm not sure, but it's a very fine mix, as you can see, but it's not a really dark mix. It's not quite what you would call a natural mix, like a natural brown crumb type of colour, but there are flecks of dark in there, so it really does look a really nice fine mix. Okay, now what else we've got? We flip the bag over, obviously got the logo on there as well, and we've also got some ingredients here by the looks of it. It's really fine print. I'm not sure if this camera will pick it up, but the English version there, we've got soy in there, we've got wheat, fish meal, as we know, so it is a fish meal mix. It's telling you there's fish meal in there, it doesn't tell you the quantity. Maize, and what else is there? Anything else of interest there? Fish oil is in there, and that will, I mean, if that's the case, some ground baits can be quite oily, and you tend to pick that up on your hands when you're mixing it. If you mix it with your hands, sometimes you can feel that stickiness, or the oil is on your fingers. But obviously we'll get to see what that's like when we start mixing it and fishing with it. Krill meal in there as well, oats, and there's, you know, there are other ingredients in there, so that's a nice little description there for you of what's in there. We've also got a batch sticker as well, which I really like. So we've got a batch number there, and we've also got a best before date, and in this instance it's April 2021, so there's loads of shelf life on it. And like we've said before, I think it's always nice to have some sort of a best before date on there, because it just gives you an idea of how old a mix is, because as we all know, some tackle shops might have had mixes like this on the shelf for quite a while. So that's really quite a bit of information we've got from the packaging itself. I'm going to mix this up now. I'm going to see how versatile it is. Can you overwet it? You know, how does it bind and that sort of thing. We're going to do a quick tank test as well. But this mix I actually managed to get out on the bank and fish with yesterday, so that'll be interesting to, you know, for you to see what kind of stamp fish we caught with it, and what kind of venue that was on as well. So what I'm going to do now is get this in the groundbait bowl. Let's get it mixed up and just see what it's like when we start adding water to it. Okay, so we're not going to mix too much up, but as we can see, it's a nice resealable bag, which is great. Okay, now the initial test is the smell. As the name suggests, it is sweet. It's not really mega sweet like some of the other mixes that are out there, but yeah, there's definite sweetness in there. So like I said, some of that will get stronger as we mix it. As you can see, the colour there, it's quite an, you can't call it a natural groundbait colour, but it's not one of the darker mixes, which is what you would expect from certain fine mixers like this. But the sweetness is really coming through now. Okay, so there we can go. Lots of tiny flecks of different colour in there. Like I said, I'm not sure what those black bits are, whether they are hemp, but there might be tiny bits of pellet in there as well. But obviously the fish meal smell's coming through as well. So let's get some water added to it. Okay, so just a little and often, as always. Already I can see that this is probably going to lend itself to overwetting, which is good. Okay, there's lots of different smells coming off there now. I'd probably say there's more of the fish meal coming through now more than anything, but obviously it's still got that sweetness. Now I'm not using a whisk or a drill, because I know that most anglers don't do that. They don't use drills and whisks. So I want to keep this as relative to as many viewers as possible. Okay, so, and let's be fair, when we're fishing at this time of year, sometimes we're only using, or certainly the venues I'm going to, you're only using 2 pints of ground bait, sometimes 3 absolute maximum, and that's no problem mixing that kind of quantity with your hand. Now there you go. Like I say, I haven't used a drill. There are a few lumps in there, but that's just because of the way that I've added the water. Now normally I would put this through a sieve, through a riddle now, but as with all the ground baits in this series, in every video, I'm going to give this exactly 10 minutes and then just see what it's like after that. I might have to add more water to it, and then we'll see if we can overwet it, and we'll try it in the tank. Well, I've left that exactly 10 minutes now. Okay, I've just had to add a tiny little bit more water to it, so it has taken on a bit more water, but as you can see, it's still lovely and fine. Okay, so the first test would be just kind of how does it bind. Now it's obviously difficult for you to tell on video, but that is binding really well. I mean that really, you could fish with that in deep water if you was going to ball it in. That's a really kind of a solid ball. There's no oil, as you can see. Well, a tiny little bit of oil just coming off. You can probably see that on my fingers, on my hand. Yeah, there's a bit of oil there, but certainly not as bad as some, you know, some other ground baits. Some other ground baits are really oily, and you can see that all over your hands. So as you can see, there's virtually nothing there. Okay, so we know that it binds pretty good. What I'm also now going to do is just going to have a look to see if it will overwet, because sometimes you might want to fish it sloppy. And certainly on the pole that can be the case, where you might want to fish with a sloppy mix. Okay, but some ground baits you can't overwet, they just go into a stodgy, well, into a paste as it were, but that's feeling, you can probably hear that. Yeah, that's overwetting nicely. That's going to allow me to fish it overwetted. So that's good, because that means it's a nice versatile mix. And it looks like, as you can see there, look, there's going to be quite a light coloured cloud off that if you was to feed that. You can see the mix there, which is quite dark. Now that it's wetted, it's gone darker, but as you can see there, it's gone much lighter. And I think when we go and put it in the tank, I think we're going to see a light coloured cloud coming off this. So yeah, there you can see it is, you can overwet it, which is great. So that means it's a nice versatile mix, And it just means you're going to be able to do different things with the ground bait during the session by adding more or less water to it. So that's nice because it means it's nice and flexible. So let's have a quick look at what it's going to be like in the tank, just so you can get an idea if there's anything coming off it, any feed particles, and what the cloud's like. Now there's lots of different ways of introducing ground bait, but for this tank test I'm going to be doing it using a cage feeder. Now this is one of the new Matrix cage feeders. These are quite fine wire mesh feeders, which means that's going to allow the water chance to get to the ground bait really easy, and that should just give us a nice idea of how this ground bait reacts underwater. Okay, so I'm initially going to try it with a nice dry mix. Okay, and I'm going to squeeze this in medium pressure, medium strength, if you want to use that term. You know, if I was going to fish a peg like I've done in the previous tests, I was going to squeeze this in as though I was fishing a peg that was about 10 feet deep, something like that. So it's not really, I'm not packing it in, but I'm not just lightly squeezing it in, nice and firm, and that'll just give us an idea of how it breaks down. Okay, so I'm just going to lower that into the tank so that it's in shot for you. We can keep his eye on it whilst we're talking about the mix itself, about how it's breaking down. Now straight away the first thing that's hitting me is that there aren't many particles coming off that at all. This has only had 10 minutes to settle. Okay, now normally under a match conditions I would have either mixed it as soon as I got to my peg, so it would have been, you know, absorbing water for an hour or however length of time it was before the start of the match. This hasn't had quite as long to settle and absorb the water, but this is going to give us a good idea about what the mix is like. Now there's very little particles, you know, there's very little coming off the feeder, in other words, coming off at the top of the feeder, so there aren't many dry particles still in there that's fizzing off the feeder like we sometimes see in more active mixers and mixers that we use when we're targeting smaller fish. So this would suit it, or be more, the way that it's being mixed now is probably more suited to bottom feeding fish, skimmers and bream, just like it says on the bag itself, to be honest. But it's breaking down nicely, that, but it's a very kind of inert mix. There's virtually no cloud coming off it, it's just ground bait, which has really surprised me, because when we over wetted it, it looked like there was going to be a white cloud coming off it, but that is not the case when it's in this dry state. So straight away that's saying to me it's a nice inert mix. So if that's what you're after, I mean that's just about, I mean that's really, the water's got to all that ground bait now, which is, you know, that's happened much quicker than what I thought. So what I'll do now is just take the feeder out, just as though you were going to reel it in, and just see what kind of, if any sort of a cloud or attraction comes off it. Okay, so I brought that out a little bit slower than, when I say slower, more vertical than what you would have done if you'd struck it, you know, out of your peg. But that has kicked up some cloud now, as you can see. But I've got a feeling that's going to settle pretty quickly. There are tiny particles in there. There's virtually no feed in that, as you can see. It's really fine and very inert. That has surprised me. That has surprised me. But what we can do is, because we can over wet this mix, we can have a look at what it would be like if you over wetted it and you wanted to feed it as a slop, or if you wanted to feed it in a different style feeder from this, but you wanted to give it a different kind of reaction under the water. So let's over wet it, and I'll just try that in the tank in its over wet state. So we'll just try this with a slop, and let's see what kind of a cloud comes off it. There we go. So we haven't got much. There's a bit of cloud come off that, but it's still stayed as a ball, and that's just an inert ball on the bottom now. A little bit of cloud came off that, but some of that was obviously being disturbed by the previous ground bait that we put in. Just to drop a feeder on the top of that, just to touch it, let's just see if it just disturbs and kicks off more cloud. No, not a lot at all. So that still stayed as a clumpy ball on the bottom, so that could be ideal for if you're targeting bigger fish, you know, when you want a stodgier mix. Just really a mix that's not going to attract lots and lots of little fish that like ground baits that have got bits fizzing off them. So that's certainly something to bear in mind, you know, if you're targeting bigger, more, you know, slower bottom feeding fish. Now this is a mix that I managed to get out on the bank and fish with yesterday. So this is the footage from yesterday when I was putting this mix through its paces. Craig's going to be here in a minute, so we're just going to start shooting the feature. I put 3 feederfuls in. I've just that on its own with some casters, and I've had 2 hybrids in the first 2 casts. Not big fish. The first one was about £1, and then I've just had another one about 6 ounce. Yeah, it looks like they're straight on it. What will be interesting is, I'm a big believer that on certain venues a sweet mix can actually or can tend to catch you a smaller stamp of fish. So that's going to be interesting to see what happens. Like I say, I'm not going to be here all day fishing this, but it's just nice to try it out. I've had 2 fish in the first 2 casts, but they are hybrids. Now I fished here about 2 or 3 days ago on peg 5, this was peg 2, and I only had a couple of hybrids all day, and I fished with a much stronger mix, a really strong fish meal mix. So whether these fish will continue, whether the sweetness of this mix is going to be more suited to the hybrids than the bream, then I guess we'll find out. But every day is different. But straight away the fish are on it, and it'll be interesting to see if we can pick up 1 or 2 bream as well. A few little indications there, so there's obviously some fish round it. Fishing with a piece of dendra on a size 14. It's a super match in case anyone's interested. Just putting a dab of roughly chopped worm like that into the mix, and then a sprinkling of casters as well into the Groundbait. Just a nice little feeder, because I've just put quite a volume of bait in, so I don't want to keep banging that bait in until obviously I know that there's a lot of fish there. Just clipped up at 25 metres. There's no far back marker because of the fog. There's a 50cm rule on here in the matches as well, so which means that the hook length cannot be less than 50 centimetres. So I'm restricted to that because I'm fishing under match conditions. But as the peg settles and gets going a little bit, as some feed starts going in, 1 or 2 fish arrive and stop feeding, it'll be interesting to see if this sweet mix can pick out 1 or 2 bream, or whether because of the sweetness the smaller fish and the hybrids are going to get to the hook bait before the bream get a chance to. Yeah, there's still some hybrids there, but this is a better bream. I thought that was going to be another hybrid. That's probably why it's gone quiet now. This mix obviously works. It's really, really nice and light, and that's snagged me up as well, I think now. Now it's come through. Feels like a decent skimmer. Like I say, it's a lighter colour mix, so a lot of people aren't really confident with, but I've had this discussion so many times, even with England internationals, that they believe that because it's a lighter colour on a dark bottom, it means that the fish can actually see it better, and they use it as a well, I suppose it comes into target fishing, but it just signals to them that there is bait there, which I think is a fair argument, Get him in the net. Well, the proof is in the pudding. Well, that's not a bad start, is it? Just hooks in the bottom corner of the mouth. 4 casts, 3 fish. There we go. The fish obviously like it. It'll be interesting to see if these fish keep coming till the end of the session, but I'll show you what we catch at the end of the session. But it certainly looks like this sweetness is definitely a winner with these fish. Cameraman's turn now to have a go. Caught a few, as you saw early on. Craig's on the box now.
This is product testing.
Product testing.
Definitely not me skiving from work.
This is Craig at work. Another lovely fish. We've had loads. Yeah, that mix has been working brilliant. Like I say, it's a lot sweeter than any mix I've used on here before, but lovely stamp of fish. Look at that, beautiful. Super match up. Bottom, middle of the bottom lip.
That's a disgorger job, that's in that.
There you go, mate, behind my ear. There we go.
Prepared earlier.
So yeah, you can see we've not been using loads of the mix anyway. It's only 3-old feeder that we're using. Beauty. Look at that. Look at that. I bet it's kissed worse.
Tell my wife you said that.
Just nice and fluffy. A few casters. Like I say, it's the sweetest mix I've ever used on this venue, and as you can see, that fog has cleared now. You can see the other bank. Obviously it's brightening up a little bit, but it's still flat calm. We're at 25 metres and we're still catching fish like that, so
See my dodgy casts now. That's
he wants me to film his dodgy casting. So the thing is, every time he's had a dodgy cast, he's actually caught a fish from it. So now he's claiming it that is the technique that he's worked out now.
They don't want to feed on the same area every time.
That's it. Yeah, you can't. They say you can't catch a 50-pounder bream on a sixpence. That was the old saying. So XS slim rod, 3.3 metre. One of my favourites. Crashed it. There we go. We've had an indication every cast, and like I say, the big issue for me has been the sweetness of that mix, and obviously the colour is standing out against the bottom, but it's not made any difference. So yeah, it's definitely done the trick today. Well, what a fantastic net of fish. That was for a feature for Matrix, and that's why there's still photos as opposed to video catch shots, but it was a fantastic day. It was really interesting how I set off catching smaller fish. There were one or two roach there, but then there were hybrids as well that I were catching. But then as the session went on, which I was kind of hoping would happen, that we'll start to catch one or two better net fish as well. So sometimes ground baits that are sweet or too sweet on certain occasions can attract, and you can just catch a smaller stamp of fish from some of the stronger, not so sweet mixers. But on that day, that proved that this kind of a mix can catch really anything that's there. But it was very clear how there were small fish at the beginning, and then there were better stamp fish in the afternoon. Now, as regards actually getting these ground baits, there are stores up and down the country that do stock these ground baits. The Spotted Fin website does actually have a store locator on it. It's very, very easy to use. All you do is go onto the Spotted Fin website, the link is below for you, and just type in your postcode, and that will give you a list of all your nearest stockists of these ground baits. However, you can purchase these ground baits direct through the Spotted Fin website as well, so that might incur obviously some postage and carriage charges depending on the quantity that you want to order. But like I said, there is a store locator there, so just pop your postcode into that store locator and it'll give you a list of all your nearest stockists. Now, as regards the cost, this particular mix comes in two different weight bags. One is 900 grams and the other one is 3 kilo. Okay, the 900 gram bag sells for £4.99. However, you can get the 3 kilo bag for £13.75. And like I say, if you go onto the store locator, it will tell you where you can get them. If not, you can get them from the Spotted Fin website and get them direct. It's advertised as an all-round mix, and I think we've seen that. However, this is a kind of mix that's got less activity in it than I expected for an all-round mix, but that means it's going to be ideal for skimmers and bream, in my opinion, bottom feeding fish that prefer a little bit more of a, you know, an inert mix. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this insight into this ground bait. Like I say, if you've used this ground bait before, please comment below and let viewers know what your experiences have been like with it. So hopefully you're enjoying this series so far. If you are enjoying these videos, then please give it a thumbs up and a share. It really is appreciated, and that will let me know that you want me to keep producing these sorts of videos. So hope you're enjoying this insight into all these mixers. If you don't want to miss any out on any of these videos, just hit that subscribe button there. And if you want extra videos each month, more coaching based videos, then you might want to have a look at my other channel, Patron TV. The link is there and in the bottom corner. So thanks for watching. Looking forward to showing you another mix tomorrow, so hope you're enjoying the series, and don't forget to log on from 8 o'clock tomorrow morning when the video will be live for you. So I'll see you all tomorrow.